Hi, Tanya.
Hi,
How are you?
fine, and you?
Fine, thanks.
Good.
Uh, so, thank you very much for agreeing to be part of Tactile Visions Woven. It's really fantastic to have your work on the exhibition, and to frankly engage your work in general. So, thank you very much also for agreeing to be part of this conversation as well.
Thank you for the invitation.
So, for people who don't know who you are, could you just briefly introduce yourself?
My name is Thania Petersen, and I am an artist who is based in Cape Town.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So, tell us a bit about the three works that are on Tactile Visions Woven.
So that is actually quite special for me because it was the first work that I did sort of in a maybe a professional capacity or whatever you can say.
Okay.
But or maybe that's not the right way to put it, but it was the very first work that I did for the first time in about 8 years. Because before that, for 8 years, I was having babies and breastfeeding real. And I had done absolutely no work. And I was bursting at the seams. I was literally bursting at the seams to do some work. And I had no idea where it was going to take me. And I had no intention of it actually kind of I had no intention for it other than being a gift to my children. That whole series of work was in fact a gift to my children. Because at the time they just started going to school and I felt that the system was quite problematic and I felt that we were quite alienated within the school because they didn't sort of, I mean, they were a minority and they were kind of, being in a private school, they were quite, they were the only people of, there was like 3 kids of color in their class, and this is Cape Town. I mean, we're in Africa, for goodness sake. So, and they had there was nothing in the school that ever addressed our history as people in South Africa. And as people in South Africa, I think we have contributed amazingly to the makeup of South Africa, whether it's culturally, politically. I mean, I always say you can't eat in Cape Town without tasting us. You can't walk in the city without hearing us at a certain time of day when the mosques go off. You can't talk without our words coming through your mouth, because Afrikaans is actually started off by the displaced communities that were brought from the Indian Ocean and the indigenous people, and it started off within our community. I mean, Afrikaans was not a white man's language. And all of these things were hijacked and appropriated and taken from us. And we left with nothing. And there's absolutely no collection of anything or even any kind of recognition of us. And so now when you think of Cape Malay, I'm not sure what to call us yet. Cape Muslim. You kind of think of book up, colorful houses, and you think of cook sisters and a nice curry, which is completely awful. You know what I mean? It's awful. But what I kind of discovered is that art had also played an important role of downplaying us in society, because it exotified us. So we were always represented in a certain way within the landscape. And this undermined who we were as people, because we were not, you always find these Malay girls and these Eastern girls in the Trichikov paintings and the Irma Stern and the Sheikh and the this and the that, which completely undermined who we were and our contribution. I mean, we were there in every struggle from the beginning, from 16, whatever, we were on the front line with everybody else, but yet we kind of got ripped of everything. So what I did for my children was I did this series that follows our trajectory as people from the time that we had arrived. And I used Twanguru, who is he's buried in Bukap, and we are direct descendants of Twanguru. So I used him as an entry point, and I used into this conversation and kind of it starts off by following his footsteps and then leads it through. So every location represents a particular time in which we were moved from one place to another, and how we changed and how we mixed and how we creolized and what we became, and until where we are today. So, and what I wanted to do was give it to them so that they have an idea of who they are. And they don't have to depend on the awful teachers. Oh God, let me take that out. Edit. Not the teachers, sorry, but the awful system. Sorry, not teachers. I love all the teachers in the world. They too are victims of it, you know. So
Yeah.
so that is what that is what it was. That was the gift to my children. And then, I mean, I had no intention of it being shown, or I had no galleries or anything like that. But literally a week after it had been, it's not even complete. It's actually still not complete. There's one more that needs to go in there. But someone had seen it from a gallery in town, who lived in the neighborhood close to where I was living. And then the next day, they phoned me and said, can we take it to the Cape Town Art Fair? And then it just went kind of crazy. And then it was in the newspapers and in the media, and then it got so much attention. And that's kind of what happened. But it was not planned. There was no plan for that to happen. I didn't plan to become sort of a working 24-hour artist. I was quite happy breastfeeding. But thank God, because you saved me. I may have had 8 children by now. So,
so how many do you have?
3. It stopped. After I made I Am Royal, it stopped. It was like art became my new baby. So I had to like breastfeeding this new baby. Although I must say the art baby is much more high maintenance than the 3 real babies. I find art is much more emotionally draining than my own children, believe it or not. Far less reward as well. Like you get no money. So with children, you still get a conversation. Art, you just, sometimes it feels like I'm just giving and giving and giving, and then like nothing comes back. But then you have people like, you know, they come along and they really appreciate it. And then that's kind of what's rewarding. But yeah, that's my relationship with art.
So thank you for that, because I think what you're saying is also, so refreshing and honest, because that kind of honesty, women also say also about, sometimes about motherhood, about the home space, to also hear you even speak that about art as well, but art making is also very refreshing as well.
Well, you kind of labor through it and then you birth it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's really hard to make art. You get like, it's so emotional, and you find yourself, and it's so emotional, and then the whole world is the audience, and it's never kind of, and it's quite unrewarding in certain ways, in certain ways where you don't, it's not like being a doctor. Well, no, that's a bad thing. That's a bad reference, because doctors work very hard. I'm giving all very bad references here. You're gonna, it's like all the people that we really cherish. Yeah, all the people that we really cherish in society, teachers, doctors, I'm like them. So edit all of those. But I mean, it's not like other jobs, like where you kind of can work super hard and then you're gonna get a paycheck at the end of the day. Sometimes you make things and you invest every ounce of yourself and you don't sell it, And sometimes the more radical your work is, and the more dear the work is to you, the less likely it is to sell, So art is like quite, and then to navigate the space, the commercial space, with what you love. I mean, it's like selling your children. It's not nice. It's really not nice. It's not nice. You go through all of this. It's hard. But at the same time, I wouldn't give it up for the world. And at the same time, I feel lucky, feel very lucky. So, sorry.
No, sorry at all. So tell me a little bit about, because although the exhibition has chosen photographs, your practice is also marked by using sort of uh, uh, fabric and combining fabric with sort of sewing and embroidery practices, and perhaps why I was interested in this body of work is almost as if these photographs are some kind of deconstruction of that, the way you've you've almost deconstructed that into a photograph in a way, and I love that element. To me, that's what those photographs looked like. It was almost as if it was a fabric of society in a way, a kind of a tapestry that had been deconstructed in that way, in which you stand in front of that screen that does those fabrics, and you pose. And so it's like a heritage that's been deconstructed in that way, which I actually found very moving. The way that you had done that. So can you speak to the way to your decision, when you started making, to actually use everyday materials to create your work?
Well, I think that, I don't, it's difficult to say what I was thinking at the time, because I don't really think, I just do. And then afterwards I think, oh, that made sense. But it is more a case of, what is familiar to me. It's what brought up certain emotions in me. Like those backdrops reminded me of every wedding I'd ever been to as a child. And it just brought back so much amazing feelings, of my grandmother's house. And I specifically chose fabrics that reminded me of her curtains, because it was nostalgic, and it was doesn't matter how many times you move in life. Those are the things that you can't take away from people, because you're going to hang up those curtains in every house that you go to, whether you're in Mitchell's Plain or in Poorkap. Whether you have your social status has collapsed. It doesn't make a difference. Those curtains and that tablecloth and the things that you use every day goes with you, but it became symbolic of the things that's inside of us. It became symbolic because the work, very importantly for me, is that my work does not represent us as slaves, and it does not, and it counteracts the narrative of victim. So all my work is very much about celebrating who we are and being proud and being dignified. And those are the things and it's about, there's certain things you cannot take away from us. You cannot, and you haven't been able to, and you will never take away from us, ever. So it doesn't matter about the house. I think, we are spiritual people. And so it doesn't matter about our house. It doesn't matter about our car. It doesn't matter, but there's those things that make you happy. It's those things that make you happy. It's like about putting on your lipstick in the morning. Or, you can't explain what it is, but it's feelings. And those feelings come with familiarity, and it comes with nostalgia, and it comes with memories, and it comes over time, and it comes through generations. And I find that when I was drawing on those feelings and drawing on those memories, the places where I found it was within the material. Within the material stuff, and not the most beautiful stuff, because Lord knows I'll never hang those curtains in my house. But I will keep it in a trunk very close by. I'll go repurpose them into something else, but you will find it. You know what I mean? Those doilies. You cannot walk past a house and you see these little doilies, or even those fabric things that you put the cookies on. It's like how the cake is going to taste before you taste it, because of the plate it's on. Do you know what I mean? Because it will remind you of that little doily, that little paper doilies that you see, how it's going to taste before you taste it, because of the memories, because of that, what that material memory jerks up in your childhood, and that sweetness, and then all the time you would never even like that biscuit, but you'll eat it. And that smell, it's like you smell these smells, and that, I don't know, we call it miangstokkies, the incense sticks,
Yeah.
I hate those things when you walk into these hippie shops and
Agravati,
shops. I can't stand it. And then I'll smell the same thing in my uncle's house, and I'll be like, oh, it smells like sunset. Smells like, you know what I mean? So that is why I specifically constructed those those backdrops. And the reason why I used the clothing was to draw on how material, it's like a material identity, but it's deeper than that. You know what I mean? But it changes. But there's certain things that we make our own. Like for instance, in the one picture where I'm wearing the Midora, and it's a scarf with a gold pecan. But if I show you that scarf, it's a very, very soft, flimsy scarf, which we pass on from one generation to another. And over time, I mean, before we just wear it this way, now we wear it that way. But then there was a time where we'd start dressing it, like kind of pinning it to resemble the crown, you know, like the queen or whatever. Because at that point, the reason that photograph was taken in District 6 and later districts, like a later District 6. And the reason why I chose that Midora for the time, pinned in that specific way, because it kind of shows a shift in how we perceive ourselves as people at that point. Because you kind of now start aspiring to the very people that oppress you. So the things that you have, you start making it resemble the people who enslave you, because you start loving yourself less and admiring the people that oppress you more than you love yourself. And so the way I pin that there, it resembles a crown, you know what I mean? But it's still our own. So there's still an ounce of us still in there. So the point is that don't ever think that because we may be dressing like you and looking at you, it's just a momentary upset. But we are in there. Do you know what I mean? I mean, look how quickly, you know, like we've been oppressed with flipping hundreds of years and everybody's saying yes, boss, no, boss. But in 1 hour, it only takes us to remember who we are. You know what I mean? Once the fear is gone, it takes you 1 minute to remember who you are. So don't be fooled by what we look like and how we pin our scarves and everything else, because inside, we know who we are. So that is what it's all about. Sorry, I talk very long.
Oh, fantastic. Wonderful. And yeah, so thank you so much, Thania, for this and giving us a glimpse into your work. It's incredibly fascinating to hear about this, and you know, of course, we can talk for ages about this because there's so many layers to the kinds of things that you are speaking about. And I'm sure once, you know, as well, once we get into, if we were to get into the Muslim references as well, that could be a much longer discussion.
We'll have to put a week. We will have to put a week. And after a week, we'll have to recap because we'll be like, oh, I forgot.
So thank you very much for the conversation and for participating in the exhibition as well.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you.